Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Abusuab3nni E1. As you may or may not know, we recently lost our dad. We were right in the heart of funeral planning, organizing, and just everything else that comes with funerals, especially in Ghana. And during that time, our eyes were open to a lot of things. We realized that people go through a lot when they are bereaved, in terms of planning, in terms of laws, what they call amamre, all sorts of things. So we decided to do this podcast to, number one, create awareness around, what happens when someone dies in Ghana. What are the laws or amamre associated with it? Number two, we want to help people prepare. So if you are bereaved or supporting someone who is bereaved, from our experience, we can share tips, and hopefully we'll invite people with experience, planners, etc., to offer you some advice and give you some guidance. And last but not least, our ultimate goal is to try and, help with the change of laws and policies surrounding funerals and even property, estate, and all that comes with it. So stick around, we've got a lot in store for you, and hopefully you'll learn a lot from this. This episode, we have a very special guest with us, and she's going to share briefly her experience when she lost a parent some years ago. So without doing too much, I'd like our special guest to introduce herself.
Indeed.
Isabella Blay.
Yes. Okay, so Auntie, a few years ago, you lost your dad, and I know you had a harrowing experience. So I'd just like you to share a little bit of what happened, the moment Dad passed, what happened next?
I was 18 then. I was in secondary school, Form 5. We were not told, like the normal Ghanaian thing. But I somehow came home for an art exhibition at British Council. So I walked home, only to meet the obituary at the gate.
Wow.
Upon seeing it, I fainted. So they carried me in, and then they asked me why I came home. I think it took some effort for them to even revive me.
Wow.
So why I came home. Then I saw Mom. She was so gloomy. I asked her, "Are you fine?" She said she can't eat, and when she eats, she cannot chew. She cannot chew. When she chews, she wants to throw up. So I just said, okay, let's try. But in my case, they even wanted me to eat, but I couldn't eat. No matter how hard they tried, I was able to take a bite. Bread, I remember. Immediately, I started chewing the bread. I threw up. I couldn't swallow it. I threw up. Fast forward, that was the weekend of the funeral. Family members came in. They came to organize what they had to organize. They told my mother in her face, she was a married woman, Mrs. Arthur. They told her that you won't live here when we bury our brother.
So Auntie, forgive me for pausing you there, but you mentioned that you came back from school and they asked, why did you come? So I'm guessing, was it like a boarding school or a day school sort of scenario?
Yes, I was in Infantiman Girls Secondary School. I was in the final year, Form 5.
Right. And so I guess they planned everything. Was it in a matter of days or because...
Okay, so Daddy passed on 28th October and the funeral was in December, first week in December.
Okay.
So I think it might have probably taken about 6 weeks before the funeral was ruled, because 28th October and then funeral was in first week in December.
So between when he passed and just shortly before the funeral, you were not even informed?
No, it was in the papers.
Wow.
And apparently my classmates had seen it in the papers. And so when I go to the library, they try to keep the newspapers away from me. They didn't want me to read the newspapers. I read a lot, but strangely, because of our exams, we were all reading notes. We're not reading newspapers anymore.
Okay.
But that day, one lady snatched the newspaper from me.
Right.
Then I said, what is that? But I didn't mind her. She was just trying to save me from breaking down.
Wow.
If I had seen it.
So by this time, you're home, you've seen the news, they've kept it from you all this while, you're struggling to eat, you're not yourself, essentially. What happens next?
My younger sister too is in the same secondary school. So she was we sent somebody to bring her back home. My younger brother too was in GSTS. So he was also brought home. Because I think that was a Wednesday and the funeral was on a Friday and a Saturday, Sunday. So we did the organization. But a lot has gone on behind the scenes without us getting involved. As young as we were, I wasn't so young then, 18 years. I was okay to remember all the bad things that the family did to my mother.
Right. Okay.
The church stood solidly behind my mother. Church of Pentecost. They stood solidly behind my mother. They would not even allow her to do something on her own. If she was going to bath, they would sit in front of the bathroom because it was a compound house. It was a compound.
Hello.
It was a compound house, and the bathroom was open. So they were afraid that somebody might even harm her. She was going to bath because if she passes here and you've killed your husband, and we shall see. But daddy has been sick for 5 years before I entered secondary school. If it is today, I'm sure they would have diagnosed that stroke because he lost use of his limbs. And he was in bed. Mother was treating her, going for physio. And why would somebody kill the husband to suffer with the children? No, it is not possible.
It's not logical.
It is not.
So Auntie, you've said quite a lot, and I wanted to bring us back to, your mom couldn't have a shower alone because basically they were threatening her because in their mind, she's killed your father.
Yes.
I mean, what went through your mind when these accusations were being thrown? I mean, this is horrendous.
What saved the situation was there was an Sofomame. She will hold us and pray with us and tell us that all that they are saying about our mother is not true. She's a good woman, and she cannot kill our father, and God is with us. So she kept reassuring us. But the painful aspect is she developed breast cancer.
Oh dear.
The very people you sit with and eat with, they are the very people that go behind the family. And should I use a word, for want of words, bully you? And it was the norm that when you lose your husband, you have to go through heinous widowhood rights.
I mean, I find it interesting, the whole, I mean, there's not even a single note of positives. I would expect that, the family will support you in this trying time, the extended family will rally around you, but instead, I hear things like bullying, I hear things like, horrendous, widowhood rights and things like that. I mean, what I want you to do for us is maybe try to unpack a little bit, especially around the funeral and the family structure. Where were these suggestions coming from in particular? Was it just, was there something written down to say, oh, you have to go through these things? Or was it one particular person somewhere saying, this is how it has to be, where was it coming from?
Well, so, like you said, Ebusua, we had the Abusuab3nni. That is the head of the family.
I see.
So it's the head of the family that decides. And we come from the Abrezi Royals 2 family. And they said that my daddy is a royal. So he has to be buried like a royal. And my mother has to go through the widowhood rites.
Wow.
We had this auntie that we thought was standing with us. Then she comes and tells my mother that, Abigail, if you don't go through this, you will be poor the rest of your life. You will not have money to take care of your children. So allow them to do whatever they do.
Wow.
Then the soft mommy will tell my mommy that, don't mind her, we will not do it. We went to the village to bury daddy. Then they took us into, but when they finished bathing for it, they did all the rites that they had to do. So when we went to the village, they did not bath him, because if we had allowed, if it has been today that we had given it to transitions or funeral home or Lashibi, they would have bathed him again. Oh yes.
What does where?
They won't bath their royal would not be bathed by foreign hands.
Right. Okay.
So if it is today, I am sure he will be bathed again. And per our tradition, per our hometown, you are not buried in a suit. You are buried in a shroud.
Right.
So we got to the village. Then they took us to a room, and then they opened the casket, put him on a bed, removed him, put him on a bed, put the coffin somewhere, and then they put the shroud on him. And that was the closest I came to contact with dead body. I looked at daddy and I said, if you can talk, tell them something. I looked straight, I said, tell them something. That we have taken good care of you. We did not kill you. Amidst tears.
And this is at age 18.
Yes. And at that time, when you lose a relative, the widow is given a small stool to sit on and face the dead body. So she sat on that stool throughout the night.
Whoa.
The Asofomamis, they came to sit with her because they couldn't leave her alone. So they sat with her. When they got up, they went to bath, and then they put her in a car, and then we followed the corpse to the Kunfio Cham. When we got there, the Asofomami was sitting very close to her. So she said, oh, Mama Abigail, can we have a word with you? So we thought that having a word with her, taking her inside, we were all there. So they took her inside, and that was it.
What do you mean that was it?
The house faces the river, the sea, the sea.
Okay.
So they used the sea sand to scrap her body. And they said they were taking the curse of the death and all the evils that had followed her out of her body. We looked for her. 5 minutes, she didn't come. We entered the room, not knowing that the room opens out. But we did not know that they had taken her to the seaside. We looked for her. Have you seen Nabi? Have you seen Nabi? So it was around 5:30, and his brother was getting worried. We can't leave this town and leave our mother here. And that was when I became very worried. So finally she came from the seaside. She looked very tired, and because she was crying throughout the way. They were using this. I don't know whether they touched her. I don't know. But her whole body. And when they finished, they will clean you in the sea. She was brought. And they said she shouldn't tell anybody.
Wow.
She wept. So I said, where did they take you? Where did they take you? She said, somewhere. Somewhere what? What did they do to you? It was recently that she was sick that she said it. I said, what?